squeezing my boob and milk just spraying out very violently. What the fuck? Hey, we have letdown. My goodness, those first 6 weeks were horrible. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hormone Diaries, and as promised, this episode is going to be all about my experience of breastfeeding so far. So going into motherhood, parenthood, I knew that I really wanted to breastfeed, but I was trying to manage my expectations about whether or not it would work out, if I'd find it really difficult. I don't know how successful I was at managing my expectations, because yes, it was really difficult at the beginning, as you will hear, but ultimately it is something that has worked out for me, and I am very, very grateful for that. Recently, I found this photo of me as a kid lifting up my dress, trying to breastfeed a doll. So clearly it was something that I really wanted to do from a very young age. Also in this video, I just wanted to note that I am going to be using the term breastfeeding because I'm talking about my experience and I identify with that term, but I know that lots of people don't really and may prefer the term chest feeding. Also, one thing that I learned about the language around breastfeeding is the difference between breastfeeding and nursing. So nursing is like direct to breast or chest feeding, but then breastfeeding is just breast milk. So it could be breast milk from the breast or it could be from a bottle. And I'm doing a mixture. So sometimes Rowan is nursed and sometimes he's fed my expressed milk from a bottle. The only information or education I had around breastfeeding before actually trying it was the breastfeeding session that my NCT group put on. Like, I knew nothing beforehand, nothing about the reality of it at all. I learned that the baby is supposed to latch onto the breast and not the nipple, because it's not called nipple feeding. Like, their mouth has got to be like so wide. Learned all about latching and learned all about the poos and the wees. So that was my like brief knowledge input that I had before actually experiencing it firsthand. So in this video, we're going to get into what happened in the hospital and topping up with formula feeds, and then getting home, how feeding was going, what happened to my boobs and my nipples, because holy hell, and just getting into my experience of the whole thing and how it's gone and things that have worked for me and Rowan. Starting back in the hospital, once again, I made notes. The whole thing is a blur. Very glad I made these notes about how breastfeeding went at the beginning. So if you've seen some of my previous Hormone Diaries episodes since Rowan's been born, you'll know that he had to be on the intensive care unit for a night, and so I couldn't start breastfeeding straight away. One of the members of staff gave me this leaflet about expressing milk in a little plastic wallet with some little plastic tubs for collecting my colostrum in. Colostrum is like the milk that's not really milk that comes out before your milk comes in. But I was just handed this leaflet and these little pots, and then that was it. And I read it and I tried and nothing was coming out. And I never saw my colostrum. I have no idea what my colostrum looked like, tasted like. Who knows? I kind of wish I had a bit more help with that rather than just like, here's a leaflet, because I tried. But luckily when I went to visit Rowan on the NICU the next morning, I could start breastfeeding him. And I was back and forth from the postnatal ward where I was staying and NICU where he was to breastfeed him all day. But the staff on the NICU were very helpful and actually like giving me tips on position and latch and things. So that was really great. The feeling of that first latch, of like breastfeeding being this thing that I knew existed and lots of people did, and something that I knew that I wanted to do but had never done before. And that first latch was just such a surreal feeling. I have no idea what I expected breastfeeding to feel like, but it is like the baby just creates a suction and you just can feel it. And it was surreal, but it was also amazing because of just like all of the hormones that were going on at that time. And I can't actually remember if it was painful. So if it was, all those hormones like clearly masked that memory, but the hormones weren't powerful enough to mask the pain that followed. Rowan definitely had a favorite breast, which was the right one. He just couldn't latch very well on the left, just didn't like it, wasn't having a good time with it, which was very frustrating because it meant that my left boob was getting like really engorged and lumpy and painful and not fun. But the staff were always encouraging me to like offer him the left one first and hoping that'll work, and we just persisted, but he definitely still does prefer the right. Like, it just feels more comfortable. I don't know whether it's got anything to do with me being right-handed and being able to get into a better position that way. I've no idea. So the feeds in hospital, we ended up doing top-up feeds with formula because we didn't know how much Rowan was getting and it felt necessary because of some of his medical stuff. And at some point, my milk came in, but I've no idea when it did because I never actually saw my milk. Like, it wasn't really like gushing out in a way that I kind of like expected it to, because when Rowan wasn't latched on and I was trying to express, I couldn't get anything out, so I couldn't see anything. And then when he was latched on, there was no like leakages, it was just like all going into him. So I never saw my milk. It was ages. It was a good couple of days until I actually managed to like get anything out and be like, oh, there's my milk, I can see it. The feeds in hospital were pretty chaotic. There was one morning where Rowan just slept for hours and we were just like, what do we do? Like, he's asleep. We were told that babies have to feed like every 3 to 4 hours, and do we wake him? Like, what's going on? But he seems so peaceful. And then when a member of staff came around and was like, when did he last feed? I was like, I don't know, like 5 hours ago or something. They were like, wake him up, feed him. And it sometimes just felt like so anxiety inducing and urgent. And you know, he was a very sleepy newborn at the beginning, not anymore. And there were so many moments of like trying to feed this sleeping baby and like trying to wake him up and get him alert enough to be able to latch. And it just was kind of chaotic and weird because the staff would also be quite vicious. Just like getting like a cold wipe and rubbing it on his feet to wake him up, or like poking his face and like pulling his ears, or like it just all felt like very hands-on. And I was just like, this seems so counterintuitive. Shouldn't we just let the baby sleep? But I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not a midwife. I'm not a baby expert medical professional, but it just was very overwhelming having people like poke and prod my baby who was fast asleep. It was very strange. Day 4, which is the day that we eventually got discharged later in the afternoon, was the first day where I felt like we were really getting somewhere with it. And that's because we were cluster feeding, but I didn't realize that cluster feeding was happening until we were like a few feeds in, because I was just like, oh, like Rowan's giving me feeding signals, then I'm offering the boob, and then he's latching, and then like 20 minutes later it's the same thing, and it was just constant, but it felt really good because I actually felt like I was doing something right and he was actually latching on the boob. And because we were doing formula top-ups, Dan got to do those, which was very cute that he got to kind of be involved in feeding Rowan at the beginning as well. So that's the chaos of those early feeds. The boobs, oh my goodness. So I don't know if you can tell, but my boobs have gotten even bigger. I already had massive boobs. Pregnancy made my boobs bigger, and then now breastfeeding, it's just another level. It's ridiculous. Rowan's 4.5 months old now, and my boobs are still bigger than his head. And babies have big heads. But yeah, as I mentioned, the left one was just feeling super engorged and lumpy and heavy and hard. And I was trying to express, like when I got a chance to have a shower, but nothing was happening. And then also my nipples were just feeling really tight and really crusty and painful, especially the left one, because that was the one that we were struggling on. So I think Rowan's latch just made it bad. But yeah, the cracked nipples weren't fun, but one of the midwives suggested that I get some of my milk and rub it in to help. And that actually kind of did for a bit. And that was when I started being able to actually like express some and like rub my milk on my nipples, which I just kind of enjoyed in general, because it was like, oh, my milk. But nothing quite worked like the nipple cream that I mentioned in my breastfeeding favorites video. Not even breast milk can beat the nipple cream. But I didn't actually start using the nipple cream until we got home. So we were still doing some formula top-up feeds once we got home, but after a while, when we were satisfied that he was doing good, his poos and wees were all good, and he was gaining weight, we like stopped doing them. Also, giving him formula would like send him into this like formula drunk coma, and he would just be knocked out and sleep for a while, but then it was really difficult to wake him up to feed, and that made me really anxious and nervous. And I think it got to the point where that anxiety was like so much that I actually preferred him being harder to get down to sleep, but actually like being able to like wake up and do responsive feeding and like knowing when he was hungry. I think I was so anxious about like the formula comas that he went into that I couldn't actually enjoy the long sleeps that he did. I would hope that if I have a second kid and any similar things come up, that I would be able to relax a bit more about it. But oh my goodness, everything is so anxiety inducing. So according to my notes, Rowan was a whole week and a half old when we first managed to get him down to sleep at night without any formula. Well done us. And now we can do it regularly. Those first 6 weeks of breastfeeding at home though, oh my goodness, they were so hard. At one point, I remember my left nipple just being so painful. Like trying to get him to latch on that just hurt so much that I just had to swap him onto the other boob, and a midwife suggested using a nipple shield, and so I tried using one of those at one point, but I don't know, there must be like different brands out there. I think I just got one from Boots. So maybe I would have had better luck with a different kind, but it just wouldn't stay on, and then he struggled to latch onto the nipple shield, and then it would just kind of like pull off, and it just wasn't working. And then in terms of positions, sometimes it was easier to get him to latch better on the left-hand side in the rugby hold, but then as he was getting bigger, and because he was such a massive baby, I found that really difficult. And there were so many attempts at the side lying feeding, so we were both like lying down, and that just wasn't working at all at first. And also I just felt like he had a really shallow latch, like it was really difficult to get him to like open wide and really like chomp down. Like I remember that at the beginning of just every time breastfeeding, just being like, open wide, Rowan, open wide, and like doing the thing where you like get your nipple on their nose or their upper lip or anything to like make them go ah, and it was just such a struggle. And I remember just having such a hard time with it, and like the left boob being so annoying that I ended up actually booking a lactation consultant, because I also, on top of wanting to kind of figure all of that out, also wanted some advice on how to start pumping, because I knew that with Rowan needing to be in childcare from about 3 months, that I was going to need to be feeding and expressing, and kind of like how to get into a routine with that and what you're supposed to do, because it was all new to me. So I ended up seeing the lactation consultant when Rowan was 3 weeks old. And when I was like looking back on my diary, I did not realize that it was that early. I was like, oh wow, I was really in the thick of it then. But of course, when she came round, Rowan was a perfect feeding baby. Like it was ridiculous. I was like, why? The soreness of my left nipple had also just passed. Like I don't know, I can't say that I did anything other than the nipple cream, but it just got better. She gave me some advice about switching sides more, like during a feed, which actually is something that I've continued to do that I find really helpful. Like if he's really fussing on one side and just coming on and off the boob, I will test him on the other side to see like, are you really hungry or not? Like what's going on here? And usually with a bit of back and forth, eventually he's just like, okay, yes, no, I'm hungry, and now we can be chill. She also helped with the side lying position, which still took a while after that to like properly crack by myself. And even now, it's not perfect every time. Like sometimes he's just too fussy and like won't latch, and I have to like sit up and pick him up and feed him that way. But when it has worked, it has been so good, especially for just me being able to get like a bit of extra shut-eye in the mornings. Thank you, side lying breastfeeding. And then we also chatted about pumping, which I will get to in a bit. Lots of people online had said to me that the first 6 weeks are the hardest. And when I was in it, I really didn't find that very reassuring, because I was like, how does this get better? This is horrendous. Now I can be like, oh, it did get better. And another interesting thing that started happening around the 6-7 week mark was I actually started to feel my boobs be ready for a feed. Because at the beginning, Rowan was just like cluster feeding so much and just like constantly on and off the boob, my boobs never really got a chance to like fill up. But I remember around 6-7 weeks starting to get this, what I can only describe as like an electric pulse through my boobs. And it started to become a bit of a pattern where if Rowan was asleep and then suddenly I'd be like, oh, got that like electric shock in my tits. And then 10 minutes later, Rowan will wake up hungry. And I'm like, oh my God, we're in sync. We're in sync. So that was very exciting. And also it still happens now and is very useful for me when I'm away from Rowan, because I'm like, okay, my boobs are like, it's time to pump. Or if I'm like heading home and I'm about to see Rowan and my boobs are going, I'm like, okay, let's hurry up home. There's probably a hungry boy who wants feeding. So at the beginning, we were tracking feeds, and at first I was just tracking them in a note in a page in Notion, and it was pure chaos. I just went back and like looked at those notes and that feed tracking, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it is done with the detail of a very anxious first mum. So to give you a sense of the absolute chaos in those early days of breastfeeding, this is what I wrote on the 4th of May. So Rowan is 4 days old. Sometimes the times and everything like won't add up, but that's because there's so much on and off fussing that even if it says that he fed for 35 minutes, it took like an hour and a half to do that 35-minute feed. So just FYI. Feed 1, after hours of sleepy not latching and then screaming, crying, not latching, 11 p.m, right boob, 35 mins.
Tried left boob, wouldn't take, sleepy but wouldn't settle, feeding signals, when put down in cot but asleep and not latching if offered boob, change nappy, 1:15 a.m, left boob, 20 minutes, still wouldn't settle in cot, 40 to 50 mils of formula, asleep, after a bit of sick, feed done, 2:30 a.m, feed 2, 5:15 a.m, woke Rowan up for feed by changing nappy, 10 minutes on left boob, asleep, another 10 minutes on left boob, 6:45 a.m, right boob, 5 minutes, asleep, 7 a.m, heated up milk, Rowan asleep, woke up to feed, 10:20 a.m, nappy change just before, really quick latching, felt positive, left boob, 15 mins, right boob, 10 mins, bleeding nip, so stopped, nappy change, 11 a.m, bottle for 15 mils, fast asleep, feed done, 11:17 a.m, the start of the cluster feeds, feed 4, nappy change before, stirring before but not awake, nice, easy, quick transition feed, so he's not starving if we discharge now, 2:05 p.m, 10 mins, left boob, 15 mins, right boob, but hiccuping, not sleeping afterwards, chill, alert, feed done, 2:45 p.m, feed 5, feeding signals, irritable after last feed, 3:15 p.m, 20 mins left boob, 25 mins right boob, change after feed, feed done 4 p.m, feed 6, realised we're cluster feeding, 4:30 p.m, 15 mins left boob, 15 mins right boob, feed done 5 p.m, feed 7, 7:15 p.m, 15 mins left boob, 15 mins right boob, feed done 7:50 p.m, feed 8, 9 p.m, 10 mins on each boob, feed done 9:30 p.m, feed 9, 9:50 p.m, 5 mins left boob, 25 mins right boob, 50 mils formula, change and proper sleep, feed done 10:40 p.m. Is anyone exhausted just from that? So we tracked feeds that way for a bit, but as you can see, absolute chaos. And then a friend recommended us the Huckleberry app. And so we started tracking feeds, nappies, and sleep in that. But now we've evolved to only tracking sleep. But this is what one 24-hour period in Huckleberry looks like, with the orange being feeds, blue being sleep, and the brown and yellow being nappy changes. Okay, so pumping. This has also been a big part of my breastfeeding journey. So at first I just wanted something really simple that would collect my letdown on the boob that I wasn't currently feeding Rowan on, and also had a little bit of suction so it kind of like could get a bit more out, because we weren't doing formula top-ups, but sometimes we still felt like we needed to give him like a bottle top-up to like help him settle. But I didn't want giving him formula to mess with my supply, because I still wanted to exclusively breastfeed. And so at 4 a.m, I purchased the Elvie Curve from Argos so I could go and pick it up the next day. And this was just because this one had been recommended by a bunch of people to me. And so the next day I tried it and I managed to get 20 mils out of one boob and 15 mils out of the other. And so I was very pleased with that. And it was kind of handy because then we had like a little stash of milk ready in the fridge to go if we needed to give Rowan a bottle at any point. For a while I used the Elvie pump a lot and did it like most feeds, but then after a while it kind of just became a bit hit and miss whether or not my boobs would actually produce anything. And then it also got to the point where I just would forget or just couldn't be bothered to use it. And then I got to like the 6-week mark when I actually wanted to start using the like big electric double pump and doing like the whole shebang. So I actually have some video clips from my first time using my electric pump, and so you can enjoy these now. What the fuck? Okay. Milk started coming out of that one. Hey, we have let down. This is fine for me, this comfort level, and it seems to be working. Like it might be able to go more. That is so fucking weird. It stops after 30 minutes if there's no interaction with the pump. Okay, so we just hang out here. Look, we're collecting milk.
Those first few weeks of pumping when Rowan wasn't actually in childcare were really difficult because obviously I was exclusively nursing him, plus then trying to fit in a pump in the day in order to start creating a bit of a freezer stash. And so it just wasn't possible every day to actually get a pump in. But now that I'm working part-time and Rowan is in childcare, I am in an actual routine with it. And do let me know if you'd like to see another video, maybe on the More Hannah channel, that's kind of about my pumping and feeding routine and like how I do it all. Another thing that I have been keeping track of is all of the weird places that I have found myself breastfeeding. And so I'd like to share that list with you now. The passport office, the Primark shoe section, a family rave, during a pedicure, at the cinema, on a log in the woods, on a bus, at a sexual health clinic, at the Tate Modern, and on a plane. And I feel like there might be a few more weird places than that, but those are the ones that I've remembered to write down. And then, of course, every pub, cafe, and restaurant that I have been to since Rowan has been born. So, where are we at now? I am so glad that I persevered, but oh my goodness, those first 6 weeks were horrible. I have no idea if it's the case that my nipples have toughened up, like I've heard some people say that your nips just turn to leather and you just don't feel anything anymore, or if it's the case that like Rowan has gotten better at latching and so actually it isn't hurting anymore. Like, I have no idea. If I even get like a brush on my nipple that isn't like Rowan trying to feed, it like feels so sensitive and so tingly and unpleasant. Not good. Also, I feel like we're starting to get into the distracted stage of breastfeeding as Rowan is becoming like more aware of his surroundings and like focusing on things and being really curious about the world. Sometimes it can be really difficult to get him to focus on feeding because he's just like constantly coming off the boob and just like looking around like, what's that? Oh, wow. And I've heard that lots of people at this stage have to like put themselves in a dark room, play some really loud white noise in order to get their baby to breastfeed, and we're not quite there yet. Maybe in the evenings it's definitely like that, but I really hope we don't get there because I want to be able to feed Rowan like out and about in the way that I have been. But yeah, he is getting more and more distracted at the boob, but he does eventually feed. It just takes a while. So this is one of the coolest things that I found for me about breastfeeding. So say if Ro and I are just like getting in from being out and we're both kind of stressed and fussy and tired, and I can tell that he's hungry and I'm like trying to sort stuff out and my back hurts and everything, like whatever it is. The moment I like sit down on the sofa surrounded by all my pillows and we like sit down and we get comfy and Rowan latches, and it's a calm latch because sometimes it's a very like on and off fussy latch, but if he does like a calm latch, like I'm on and I'm staying here for a while and I'm having a good feed, like the hormonal release is so cool. I'm assuming that a lot of that good feeling that I get when we like sit down and relax and feed is hormonal, but then also I'm like, is it just because like I'm getting comfy and also like, you know, we were busy and stressy and now we're like sat down and relaxed? Like, it's probably a mixture of both, but oh, I love it. Like, I love that feeling. Like, it's just this rush of just like calming hormones. Like, I feel so relaxed. I feel like I can just like sink into the sofa and like Rowan is really happy. It feels so good. Okay, maybe I lied. Maybe this next thing is the coolest thing about breastfeeding, but it's something that I've only just discovered that I can do in the last couple of weeks, and I have become obsessed. And that is squeezing my boob and milk just spraying out very violently. I don't know whether it's something that I would have been capable of earlier and I just didn't bother trying, but something happened where I just like tried it once, or it was an accident of like pressing my boob and it was just like, pff, I was like, what? And now I have the itch to do it and I get the satisfaction from doing it the same way I do from like popping spots. Like, it's so unbelievably satisfying and hilarious. But also I probably shouldn't do it because somebody told me that it was something that they did a lot and it like messed with their supply and gave them lots of engorgement. I've not experienced that yet, and I hope I don't, because I really enjoy just squirting my boobs. It's so ridiculous. I'll just be getting ready for bed and I'll just like start squirting my boobs into the sink, or like say if they are feeling a bit engorged but Rowan is asleep, I can just be like psh, 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 psh. Or if he's kind of like had a bit of a fussy feed and I'm like, are you okay? Like, did you even get any milk? Like, have you like emptied the boob? Like, what's going on? And I'll give the boob a squeeze and it'll be like, psh, and I'll be like, right, there's plenty of milk in there. I don't know whether like the power that it comes out of like makes him fussy because he's just like being sprayed in the back of the mouth with milk. I love it. Also, if any of my friends, my IRL friends, are watching this and would like a demonstration, I'm more than happy to show you if that's something that you would like to see. It's very funny and not sexual at all for me. So I think I'm going to end this video on that very ridiculous, silly note. Thank you so much for watching. If you are somebody who breastfeeds or chest feeds, then please let me know your experience of it in the comments. Are any of yours similar to mine, or have you had different experiences to me? I feel really lucky and really grateful that I am able to have a breastfeeding relationship with my son Rowan, and I also feel very lucky that he will also take a bottle, which means that I'm able to work part-time and he can go to childcare and still be happy and fed. Actually, I have one more thing to say, and that is in all of the demonstrations and information videos and stuff that I've seen about breastfeeding and chest feeding, they always use a tiny knitted boob, and that doesn't help because I have very large saggy boobs, and so all of these demonstrations just don't feel relevant to me. So, you know, if people could point me in the direction of like information about breastfeeding when you got large titties, that would be great. But I feel like me and Rowan have got it down now. But it is a very different ball game, I think, than what literally all of the demos that I ever saw before getting into this were like. Thank you again for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed this video and it maybe answered some of your questions that you had about my breastfeeding experience. There is likely going to be just one more episode of the Hormone Diaries that's going to be all about sex and intimacy and contraception post-birth, and then we'll end with like a big Q&A on all of the topics. So I will try and do my best to answer some of your questions in the comments, but also do save them for that, and follow me on Instagram if you want to ask questions for that massive Hormone Diaries Q&A, because that is likely where I will ask for people to submit them. I hope that you're all doing well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.